Hey moms, I'm so glad you're here today. Today, I'm going to be interviewing my illustrator, Beth Snider. She illustrated I Know the Plans and God is 3-in-1. And today, we're going to be talking to her, an amazing woman of God, and she's going to share with us some of her inspiration and all the great things that she does and some really kind of great tidbits about the illustration process and how God is always at the helm of everything she does. I cannot wait for you to listen in on this interview. Stay tuned. Hello, moms. Welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm Jennifer Bosma, wife, mom, grandma, former teacher for 23 years, and now a Christian children's book author and your podcast host. Are you a faith-based mom trying to live out a Christian life for your family? Do you want to learn more ways that you can have power over your child's spiritual growth? Inside this podcast, you will find tried and true ideas to grow in your faith and be the best wife and mom you can be. So listen in as you're cleaning up, doing the drive, or matching that sock, and be encouraged to know that God has his front parking spot set aside for you. Hello, and welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. Today, I'm so excited because I have my favorite person, Beth Snider. She happens to be the illustrator of both of my second and third book, I Know the Plans and God is 3-in-1. And today, around this week, we are celebrating the 2-year anniversary of I Know the Plans. And it was such a cool way, the way that Beth and I found each other. And I will share that probably a little bit later. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Beth before we start chatting. Beth Snider is an illustrator from the Kansas City area where she lives with her husband, who is an elementary school teacher and a YouTuber with an outdoor adventure channel. They have 3 sons, 1 daughter, and an award-winning black lab dog named Georgie. I met Georgie and met all their kids. So great. She enjoys creating delicious meals in the kitchen and staying active with her church family. When she's not illustrating, you can find her on the couch, braiding her daughter's hair, cup of coffee nearby, and watching an episode of Little House on the Prairie. Welcome, Beth Snider, to the Front Parking Spot podcast.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness. I just love how we found each other. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is who illustrated your books? And I just say, my goodness, it's Beth Snider. She's amazing. But I like to tell people how I found you. When I was teaching, I had a student's mom who was an amazing illustrator. And we were talking and she couldn't, illustrate some of my books. And she goes, you know who you need to find? You know who you need to get is Beth Snider. And she talked you up and I thought y'all were best friends. And then I reached out to you very boldly. I'm like, hey, Beth, I'm Jennifer. Do you know blah, blah, blah? And then that is how we got connected. And you didn't even know the mom, but she had admired your work. And welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. I can't wait to talk to you today.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we found each other. I think that we've made a really good pair.
And we're really good friends now, which is amazing. Yes. And to get to meet you guys twice, out there in Kansas City, it has been a truly big blessing. Okay, so we're going to start with some of the questions that I have for you. What made you want to illustrate children's books?
Well, it's always been that I like to draw things that have to do with stories and that tell a story. And so I would say that it's different than creating art for art's sake, like the kind of art that you would find in a gallery or something that's like kind of feeding your creativity. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of a solo endeavor. What I like to do is it's a challenge to me to try to tell a story with my illustrations and to see it's like problem solving in a way. And so that's what I like about it.
Oh man. And you do such a great job at that. Now, I know when I'm writing, sometimes, authors are always talking about writer's block or per se. When you get someone to sign up, like someone calls you and commissions you to be the illustrator for their book, like, what do you do when you get, as we call writer's block? I'm sure it would be like illustrator's block. What do you do to get your inspiration back?
Well, it's harder to get illustration block whenever you have a story. And maybe that's what I like about illustrating stories is that you have the assignment right there. And the only thing, it's not like you can't think of what to draw. You know what you have to draw. But I start thinking of it kind of like characters on a stage.
Mhm.
and I will switch the camera angle to what's happening. And so like if I'm blocked, like the idea is just not working, I will say, okay, well, can I come from like a bird's eye view and draw that? Or I can crouch down like a little mouse and draw it, or I can come from the other side of what I had originally thought. So I think that that's a good way to solve a problem that you're having if you can't think of how to draw that particular portion of the book.
Right. Oh, that's a great idea. I never thought about that because a lot of your pictures are from like different angles and stuff. And, and I just love them.
Yeah, I think that's what makes an interesting book too. You don't want everything from straight on eye level. I think that's kind of boring. So,
Right. Because I noticed you have some looking down. That's really cool. I like that. I'm going to start looking for that in illustrations because you definitely see that across different illustrated books.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, I know when you did, I know the plans. I was amazed when I first looked at it because you had on every page, you had the muted rainbow for I know the plans. And we all know the rainbow is a wonderful sign that God gave us when he told us and Noah that he would never flood the earth again. And I loved how you use a muted rainbow. And I know the plans at every page. Sometimes it was through the scarves of the polar bears when you illustrated that. Sometimes it was just like a swoop of the clouds. But I know that's something you did in my book, but outside of the actual characters you are drawing, what are the other little things that you like to incorporate in pages?
Well, other than like, I think maybe what you're talking about is what they call an Easter egg. Maybe I'm not sure if that's the element that you're talking about, other than just design elements that pull the whole book together. Like, of course, like a color scheme is going to pull the whole book together. You use the same colors in on the same on all the pages,
Mhm.
but illustrators like to use what they call an Easter egg. So it's kind of like some little element that they will include on each page, whether it be like a little bug or little a cat. What is this cat doing? The last one I illustrated, it was the little brother. Like it's like, what is he doing on every page? And it was really kind of like a secondary storyline
Mhm.
to find that little boy in the book pages. So I think things like that, like special little attention to detail, is really what's going to make a book flow really well and be fun to read. So
I like that. And you did the same thing with Goddess 3-in-1. You had the doves,
yeah.
and it's really cool because I think when I read Goddess 3-in-1 to my granddaughters, we have so many good conversations because like on the creation page, you have the three doves and it goes into God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And Jesus was there at creation. But for me to actually write that in the text, that would really confuse a lot of people until they really understand and research, biblically how that works. But you were able to incorporate it in the picture. And
Yeah. And I think that that's a way that we both got to incorporate a deeper meaning of our faith into it and the theological meaning of that. It was, I think, helped communicate and bolster the whole project that the book was. So
oh, wow. I know. It's so amazing. And I remember how, because with Goddess 3-in-1, of course, we're talking about God. And I remember when we first talked, like, Jennifer, I can't draw the face of God, but and I'm like, no one can, we don't know what the face of God looks like other than magnificent. But I loved the way you did that. And you did it from his back, you did it from the side. So once again, you really were able to tackle that. And I was praying that would, work out. And you did an amazing job with that.
yeah, and that was only from like just a conviction, a personal conviction on my part that it's such a deep and meaningful and like it's such a tall task to be able to draw the face of God that I wanted to just come at it with the greatest reverence possible because I think that I don't want to make it seem comical or anything like that. So it's like I'm afraid I might do that if I try to draw the face of God. So
Right. That's daunting, I know. And so, okay, when you're drawing, I remember when we did I Know the Plans, you were so excited about doing the animals, and the animals were so fun because I love reading it to my granddaughters because they love animals and they love habitats. And that's what you did. You did the animals and the habitat. And now I incorporate, all the 7 continents. But besides, like, what is your favorite thing to draw? And what if you could pick anything, what would be your favorite thing to draw?
I think it's probably just the characters. Like that's why I spend such a long time on developing the characters of a book. Actually, in the two books that I did with you, I didn't really have that. Like we didn't really have like a main character the way that I usually do in books. But I really love to just put like before I even start a book, I will like spend a long time on that character, and we might go through a lot of revisions. Like I just got done today with doing 6 rounds of revisions on a character. Now, that's not fun for me per se, but it's really fun to see the development of it and the collaboration with an author. Like they get to have their hand in it. And if they were like to go and get their book published through a publishing company that wouldn't, usually traditional publishing companies don't allow the author and the illustrator to even talk. So I think that that's just like a really special thing that I've really honed in on in the field of children's books that I am in. I try to make that like the focus because it's the thing that I think is the reason why they even want to work with me is because they get to help this process, and it's really fun to see it come to life. So.
Oh, 100%. Because I remember when we were doing that and we were talking and stuff and how it worked out that we found each other for book 2. I know the plans. And then for God is 3 in 1, there was nobody I was going to do it other than you, because I just knew if I wanted to have a really great book, the pictures make it. The illustrations are what really sell the book and that bring the people in. And it was a non-negotiable. I just had to have Beth Snider for both my books. So love it. Now, I remember when I got to visit you, because for our listeners, when I Know the Plans came out, Beth and I went around the Kansas City area and we went around to different schools. And it was like one of them was your niece's school, right? We went to.
Yeah.
And a couple of them. And we had so much fun because we did an author and illustrator like visit.
Yeah.
And that was so fun. I think the kids were like, you just amazed. And I like talking about like, and I Know the Plans. I know you had the whale page. I'm like, what was your favorite page to illustrate? And when I do author visits still, I tell them it's the whale page. And do you remember that one particular, like what you liked about it when you did
I think I probably liked it because the baby was flipped upside down.
Yes.
And I like all the houses. They look like the kind of houses that would be like in Norway or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just very like fairy tale. I don't know.
It was so cute. And then it was flipped upside down. And then the little rainbow was going through its belly. See? Tie-ins were so good. All right. But when I was there, when we did the author visit, I got to see how you actually do your illustrations. Can you tell our listeners how you do that?
So I use the app Procreate on the iPad, which is like what a lot of illustrators are using right now. So I think like I started out pencil and paper, watercolor, and that'll always be my first love. But you cannot be efficient enough if you're doing that, because you have to like pretty much, if you make a mistake, you gotta crumple up the whole paper and throw it away. And if you're drawing digitally, it's just easy to go back and make corrections and just to serve your clients better. That's better. But if I was living in a perfect world and maybe like, one day when I get to heaven, I'll only do real watercolor.
Oh, wow. Yes, all of it. But it was really cool. I remember sitting next to you on the sofa and you were showing me on the iPad and how you do it. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Now, this is a bonus question I just kind of thought of now, but how, so many people with AI coming in, like, how do you differentiate, because your stuff is all you and you can take the information from the author and really make it your own. Does AI, is it a problem? Does it help? What does it do with this coming age of AI? How does that mess with your illustration?
Well, it's a big topic right now amongst illustrators. Yeah, that's a really big, it's very controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I probably wouldn't ever use it. It's just not my kind of thing. And I do think that there's an ethical line somewhere in there, because AI is pulling from the work of real artists in order to even get what they're producing. And so it's a form of stealing artwork from real artists. And so what I have seen though is it's not a big threat at this point at all, because the way that it's coming in is that self-publishing authors will want to get the cheapest rates. So they'll hire someone off of Fiverr or Upwork. And I'm not saying that all the artists are bad on there or anything like that, but this is where this kind of thing happens, where they hire an illustrator and they're really impressed with their work, but that artist is using AI. So they'll be, feeding it prompts, and then it'll look really, really good in one part of it. Like maybe the character looks really good, or the room that the character's in looks really good. But then you'll see all these kind of wonky areas, like the fingers. There will be like usually the fingers are all wrong. And then if they need to add something, they usually drop in clip art that looks like it's not even done by the same artist. So, I mean, like, I guess sometimes, the average person wouldn't be able to tell, but I could tell right away because I'm like, okay, for one, this person cannot be that good of an artist and that bad of an artist at the same time.
Right, right.
The good and bad art mixed. And so, I mean, it's easy to tell at this point. It is not to the point where anybody could actually use it for anything. And then if they do, and they're required to report it to Amazon that they are using AI. And also none of those images can be copyrighted because they're stealing from other art. So, and I do know the only ethical way I think that an artist can use it is if they're like, oh, I can't understand, like I cannot get a concept for this, or I can't understand how to draw this room or this building and I can't get it at the right angle. Maybe then they could use it for a reference, like if they asked for some basic part of it and use it to look at it for reference because they can't find an actual reference picture. Everybody uses reference. And using references, there's nothing bad or wrong about that, but you don't want to be stealing other people's art. And so, yeah. Anyway, that's my opinion.
No, that's
I had such an opinion on it.
No, that's good because I know that is like a thing. And I know a lot of the Fiverr artists do that. And it's really disappointing. And now so many of the illustrations, especially that traditional publishers are using, the artwork is just not there. And it's just kind of disappointing when you see these artwork that you can kind of tell which country they came from. And I remember when I was teaching and I would pull in some like fun little grammar lessons or something, and they always had the cartoon art and you could just tell, and they all had kind of an accent and stuff. And anyways, I just really appreciate your authentic, genuine, original art because you can tell a difference. And I'm going to start looking in books now. I mean, that's a really...
Yeah. And I mean, even though there are some artists in other countries that will work for a lower fee that are like pretty good, but it upsets me that they're kind of giving these people who are using AI or kind of scamming people in certain ways do happen to come from like other countries outside of the US a lot. And it's not fair for those other people who are trying really hard, who are really good and at what they do, and they have to contend with those other people that are kind of making them look bad.
Right.
And also even for the other just artists in general are getting undercut by these people who are doing nothing but shortcuts. Right. And so, they don't have to charge very much, but they can just kind of turn out books. And I think that it's all very low bar art.
Right.
So
and they charge a lot less, and they try to get the person in, I only charge this amount, but you know what? You get what you pay for.
That is what I say all the time. And then it's always funny because like I like to add my opinions to these Facebook pages of children's book illustrators and writers. So I'll just go in there. It's kind of like a little fun time for me to get some entertainment. I'll go in there and I'll share my opinions or whatever. And I'm like, you get what you pay for. And everybody else is, there's always like a couple of people who's like, well, you know what? I'm fully set. I made all the money that I need to. And I just like doing things for free. And I'm like, all right, well, you're the one person.
Right.
This doesn't apply to. But for the most part, you are getting what you paid for. I mean, if you want, you want to give somebody who's just like a student artist, just coming out of high school or out of art school and they have never done a book before, they'll probably give you a lower rate, but you're going to they may find it really difficult to finish a book. It is hard to make a character over and over again, looking consistent, and they might just give up in the middle of the project.
And then you have someone looking completely different.
Yeah.
And then all the measurements, like you have to do this type of pixel or whatever. Like I can't even.
Yeah, they may not know. They can create it at a lower, at a much smaller size, and you can't blow those up. If you blow them up, they look blurry. So it's like, you better know how to set up your canvas in your whatever art program that you're using. If you don't, then you could finish all the illustrations, turn them in, and they'd just be all wrong.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff to know.
There is so much. And like, I don't know any of it. So to have you be when we partnered together is such a blessing. Yeah. And so you are a Christian mom, and the moms listening to this, a lot of them are, maybe they're thinking, I need to find an illustrator. So we'll get to that in a second. But as a Christian mom, I love when I'm doing the writing and you're doing the illustrations, we just partner, and the story just gets doubled by your illustration with the text. So as a mom, what has been your greatest source of inspiration to grow in your Christian faith? Because you got 3 boys, a daughter, we've got Georgie the puppy, you got a grandson, and you work and you're drawing all the time. Tell us, how do you stay grounded in your faith, and how do you grow in your Christian faith?
Well, I firmly believe that any creativity that I have at all comes in is rooted from God, and he's our creator. He's the one who gives it to us. And so he can take it away if he wants to. So I mean, at any moment I could have a hand injury or something like that. And I have to remember that this is not like the ultimate identity for me. I can live life happily if I don't do art. But I mean, it's the thing that when I do it, I know that it's like bringing God worship and joy. And I almost feel like I want to like get choked up or something.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when people talk about worship, they talk about, I guess what you would think of conventionally as at church, you're singing a song or something like that. But I always go back to the fact that I'm worshiping God whenever I'm drawing and doing what he created me to do. And this is part of what he created me to do. And if he takes it away from me, that's going to be okay, because he created me for other things too, to be a mom and to just do all the things that he tasks me to do every day. So I don't know if that answered the question.
No, that's really good, because, ultimately you're giving God the 100% authority to do as he pleases with your talents and skills and how you can serve best the kingdom. Yeah. And that's perfect. And I think when we relinquish that control, that is beautiful. And that's what I try to do when I'm writing, like, with God is 3 in 1, and that story, like whoever wants to sign up to write a book on the Trinity, that's just a really hard task. But when he pours it on you, like I could not shake it. And the pour on, and then how you partnered with me and how you made these pictures, just like, wow, like the unspoken illustrations that went with the text. It was just totally God. And I'm so grateful for that. And I want our listeners, because everyone's always calling. I mean, whenever they read my books, they're like, your illustrations are amazing. I'm like, well, that's just Beth Snider. She is incredible. But how can people find you? Because they're always looking, people are like, should I write the text? Should I illustrate? What's the best way for listeners to connect with you and, find you?
Well, they can always contact me at my website. That's what, like, number one way people can find me. And that's bethsniderart.com. And my last name is spelled Snider. So Beth, everyone knows how to spell that, sniderart.com. And then I'm on Instagram at beth.snider.artist. And I don't know. I mean, those are the 2 best ways to find me. I'm always open to talking with people about their ideas. So.
Right. And I'll have that in the show notes too for the listeners, because people are always asking me, like, how do I get in touch with that? But that's great. And I just can't thank you enough, Beth, for being on the show, especially with the 2-year anniversary of I Know the Plans. And it's just my books are just more special because you did them and you partnered with me and you filled in the gaps of God moments throughout them. So I'm so thankful for that.
Thank you for having me and for giving me the honor of being able to illustrate your stories, because I think you're a really talented writer. I think that we really click well in our personality and our love for Jesus. And just like, I think that both our purposes are to just bring more glory to God in whatever we do. So we're well suited for each other.
Amen, my friend. Well, thanks for being on the Front Podcast today. I cannot wait for our listeners to learn more about you. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Well, mamas, thank you so much for joining in. I know you are super busy doing all the things that can consume your day, but But you took a couple of minutes to learn how God wants to build you up in your faith, family, and life. And He wants to applaud you for this. Please subscribe and review my show. This helps other moms tune in as well. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram at Front Parking Spot, on Facebook at Front Parking Spot Mom Community, or my website at jenniferbosma.com. Have an Ephesians 3:20 type of day, mamas, and be encouraged as you go for the front parking spot in your life today. God bless.